Good morning, everyone. Thanks for spending a few minutes with me drinking our morning cup of coffee. This morning, my cup of coffee is brought to you from the Coffee Emporium, really good coffee company of Cincinnati, Ohio. It's a Winter Solstice blend of caramel and butterscotch, and courtesy of my daughter and son-in-law who live there who sent that to me. Thanks, guys. This morning, I wanted to chat with you just a few minutes about the difference between an employee and an independent contractor. And there's some reasons why I believe that's going to be a real hotbed area in 2021 and beyond. But I'm going to save that for a little bit later. Today, I just want to talk a little bit about what the differences are between those um, classifications. So let me go ahead and pull this up. Employee versus independent contractor. Why is it important? First of all, liability concerns. If you have an employee, you're generally held as the employer to be responsible for their negligent actions. And the idea there is you can kind of oversee them, you can train them, you can make sure you put them in the right place, and you can make them safe. That's generally the idea. Independent contractor, a company is usually not responsible, as a general rule, for their negligent acts. Taxes, that's the big issue. 1099 versus W-2. Some of us may have been a 1099 independent contractor in the past, and boy, did we love it while we were the 1099 employee. We're not an employee, 1099 worker during the year. Why? Because they didn't cut out any taxes out of our paycheck. And then we got this surprise at the end of the year. And you know what that is, that we're responsible for paying our own taxes. If you're an employee, the payroll taxes are withheld. The company has a matching portion. And at the end of the year, if you're like most Americans, you probably get a refund. And if you don't, you at least have made some payments during the year toward your tax liability. And then there's some other miscellaneous items like unemployment insurance and workers' compensation that are affected by the difference in classifying a worker as either an independent contractor or an employee. Can we just agree? Can't we just agree? Well, the IRS, the courts, the Department of Labor say no. Doesn't matter if the worker and the company say, look, we're going to agree to treat you as a 1099 independent contractor. It works out for everybody. Unfortunately, that's not the litmus test. So what is the litmus test? Well, control. That's generally the overriding concern. Who has control? Does the company have control over the actions of the worker? Do they tell them what time to come in? Do they tell them what time to leave? Do they tell them when they must do something and how they must do something and why they must do something? Do they provide the tools of the trade for them? Do they provide the place for them? Et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. There's a whole bunch of things that go into what determines the difference between an employee and an independent contractor. And it's way beyond the scope of this morning's cup of coffee. But for our purposes, at least for now, let's just think of it in that terms, control. And as I said, there's a whole bunch of different things. In fact, at one point, the IRS had a 20 common law factors test that they used to determine it. And they looked at 20 different factors and they weighed them all. They didn't just necessarily say 11 went one way and 9 went another. They just kind of looked at the picture as a whole to determine whether someone was truly an employee or an independent contractor. What not to do. I got to tell you a little story. When I was a very young attorney, wet behind the ears, but fresh out of tax school, I had my CPA certificate, my law school degree, and my master's of tax law degree. my bosses sent me to a client of ours, a trucking company, who had recently been audited by the IRS and had received a rather large tax bill. Well, it appeared that the trucking company was treating all of its truck drivers as independent contractors rather than employees. And the distinction was obvious. Because they were independent contractors, they didn't withhold taxes, they didn't match taxes, and as I recall, it was a rather large mid six-figure tax bill that they had received. Well, so I go in to meet the client, and I walk into their office. I open the door, I shut the door, I turn around, I look up on the wall, and I see something. Anybody have any idea what I saw? I saw an employee of the month plaque with the name of truck driver after truck driver after truck driver. I turned and introduced myself, and I asked them, I asked, was that there when the IRS auditor was here? And they sheepishly said that it was. And I asked them to please take that down or relabel it as truck driver of the month. So what not to do? Don't act against your best interest. Don't call somebody an employee on a plaque if your idea is to treat them as an independent contractor. I hope you have a great day, and I'll see you next time.